Alright, welcome back. This is going to be a pieced together kind of poop show of a video. I got one shot of video that I'm going to piece up and try to interrupt and interject things I think are important, and to complete the story where I kind of don't have video to fill. I shot video, I want to finish the job, I didn't get back to finish the video. I was going to scrap the whole thing, but I thought it was interesting and important enough to try to make something out of it. So I'm going to dress it up as best as I can. Hopefully this whole thing doesn't go to and we get to salvage something out of it. I'll let the video start to run, and I'll interrupt it where I feel I need to, and insert important information. If in the end you like the video, give S&A Auto a thumbs up and a like. And if you don't, I'm Chad from the Practical Mechanic with a stain on my shirt. Chad, I need a new shirt. Let's give it a whirl. Okay, here's what I'm up against. This is a 2012 Kia Sorento with an intermittent AC operation. I will also apologize now for the wind noise. I didn't realize I had the blower on. Well, I did realize I had the blower on. Didn't realize how much it was affecting the speaker. I was shooting off my phone, and I didn't realize how much noise it made. Be kind. I got called in after the compressor was changed. I verified that at the time that I came here, the AC did not work. The system was full. Static pressure was good. And I went through my basic checks. My control panel functions. AC light recirculating. I can turn the blower on and off. Mode door works. Temperature works. Everything works, even though the AC is not, it's blowing warm right now. I cannot communicate with the AC controller. The AC control module, which is part of the control head, is not on DLC. I can't on the DLC network. It is on the network. It does talk to all the other modules, but it doesn't talk to the DLC. So therefore, if I try to communicate, I get nothing, because that's just the way Kia set it up. So this was one of the problems. This car has multiple diagram options depending on the options of the vehicle. Whether it had a 4 or 6 cylinder, automatic or manual AC, if it had what they call an ECC, externally controlled compressor, or not. Add in possible rear AC functions, and then add in on top of that where you're getting your diagram from, and you could possibly see up to 12 different variations of this wiring diagram and options. One of them being on the 4-cylinder, nope, let me fix that. On the automatic AC, you can communicate with the HVAC controller. On the manual, you cannot. Things like how many sensors there are. Manual AC doesn't have a cabin temp sensor, and automatic AC does. The 4-cylinder uses an AC relay. The 6-cylinder does not. The automatic AC module you can see on the scan tool. I said that. Add in what type of compressor you have, and then the diagram, including the OE diagram, because, and I'll insert a picture, they will overlay multiple options of diagrams over each other, so when you're looking at it, you think you see an AC relay because you punched up a 2012 with a manual AC with a 6-cylinder with an ECC, externally controlled clutch, and you see the relay. You say, oh, it's got an AC relay, but it's not. You got to look close, and it says, and it doesn't even say 4-cylinder. It gives you the engine code, the G4KE. I don't remember exactly. So one of the many issues I ran into. The only data I really have is in the engine control module real quick. I did come to find out, I'm going to shorten this up as much as I can, that when the AC stops working, it's through an ignition cycle. Sitting here with it not working, it won't just all of a sudden start working. Sometimes if you cycle the key, or let me rephrase that. Yeah, I mean, when you cycle the key, you may or may not get it to work. If it is working and you cycle the key, you may or may not get it to not work. So there's no system, there's no systematic failure. Just you can start it up, shut it off, start it up, shut it off. It works, it works, it works, and then all of a sudden it's not going to work, and it's not going to work, and it's not going to work. Right now it's not working. This, in hindsight, that part right there turned out to be a key piece of troubleshooting information. I knew it had something significant to do at the time. I didn't know what. Looking back, I know exactly what that meant. And going forward, it's going to make this diagnosis a bit easier. I want to put my foot in my mouth on that one. But yes, that piece of information, the fact that you could turn the AC on, the AC would work, and it would work as long as the car kept running. It would never shut off while the car was running. If you shut the car off and started it back up, you may or may not get the AC to work again. And vice versa. If it wasn't working, you cycle the key, you may or may not get the AC to start working. There was definitely no rhyme or reason to it. It's been sitting here all night. I started it up cold. One of the things that I'm trying to figure out, forgive me, is these couple of PIDs here. The AC pressure switch sensor built in, that means it's built into the PCM. The AC pressure transducer is being read by the PCM and then reported back to the HVAC. It's these three PIDs right here, the AC on condition, the AC switch, and the AC compressor on by ECU. See how they're all off? And there is my, by the way, there is my AC pressure. 811 kilopascals, which is somewhere around 100 psi static pressure. That's fine by me. That should satisfy any control module to say, hey, there's something in the system you can go ahead and turn on. Now, I will tell you when the AC starts to work, all three of those, the second, third, and fourth PID, they will change to on. So for right now, I can only assume, because I can't find any service information that tells me what they're supposed to do, but come on, stay in focus. I believe those are outputs to the HVAC controller to tell it it's okay to turn on or off. And I can only assume, again, I can't find any documentation on this, that it's basically confirming that it's calling for AC, the AC switch is on or off, and then the compressor is being allowed by the ECU. Service information. Hyundai and Kia, not just this year, all of them, tends to be horrible. I reached out to a few different resources and I couldn't find a lot of what I really needed. Like those three PIDs, those three pieces of information. Were they inputs or outputs? Where are they getting the information from, and who are they telling it to? And again, because I can't see it on the scan tool, I can't talk to the HVAC controller, it's hard to put the pieces together. And along with bad service information, made it even harder. And the information I did get, it wasn't all in one spot. There was a piece of information here. This sensor should read, this PID should read. What's good, what's bad. It was scattered all over the place. Knowing where that information for those three PIDs was coming from and where it was going to would have definitely helped speed things up. Excuse me, just still eating my dinner while I'm filming. It would have helped speed things up. I was initially assuming that AC on was an output. It was actually an input, and I'll explain that more later when it comes together. I'm guessing in cases of overheat, that it's running too hot, if it's misfiring, if it's the intake air temperature, ambient temp sensor. And just so you know, I've pulled this module out and pinned every single wire that needs to be pinned out on the back of that. I've done it. Evap temp sensor, inspect. Whether it's working or not working, the evap temp sensor is reading correctly. The ambient temp sensor, working correctly. There is a blower command. Not just that it changes the speed of the blower, but when you go from 0 to any speed, there is a 12 volt reference that drops to 0, basically signaling, hey, the blower is on. I've checked, I've even jumped this out, just and I'm going out of order here, but I did jump the compressor. The compressor works, pressures will come on, it will start blowing cold. I can even jump it from the connector right in the back of the module here. Unplug it, jump the compressor comes on, we're good to go. I'm not sure what else. This, I will say, and ready for this one, I called a bad module. Hence the parts there. That's the new module. That's the old one. I was wrong. It is not the module. And that is also, I was phoning a friend, and I won't say who, but it was a help desk, so to speak, and we went over it together. And we went over all the pits that I had. We went over every single wire. And at the end it was okay, it's got to have a bad module. And it does not have a bad module, because this one is doing the same thing. So I'm at the point now where I don't know, I'm not quite sure where I'm going to go with this, because there is nothing on here to indicate why the ECM would not let the AC come on. My battery voltage is good, we are charging. The rest of this video, I kind of, the video clip I spent pointing out PCM PIDs that I thought, well, let me back up. I had it in my head that it was the PCM that was not allowing the AC to turn on. I was in a bit of a rabbit hole because I wasn't understanding those 3 AC PIDs. I had it in my head it was the PCM telling the HVAC controller not to turn on, that it was seeing something it didn't like. I went through misfires, engine temperature, I was kind of pointing them all out. In the end, it was irrelevant. It had nothing to do with, because there are certain engine running conditions that will inhibit the AC. Like if there's a misfire, and I don't know about this car, but there are strategies in different manufacturers that will inhibit AC. Things like, and this varies year, make, and model, misfires, knock, temperature, intake air temp, throttle position. All of those things can and may have an impact on whether or not the PCM will let the AC turn on. And that's what I had my head going towards, and I was off. When I point out that I checked AC sensors and they were good, it was, at the time I hate saying good, I like to say what the reading was, what is good, right? And right now I can't think of it, but somewhere around, I think the evap temp sensor was 2.5 volts, which indicated 80 degrees. The ambient temp sensor, which is in the front of the radiator, was possibly similar. Don't hold me to that, but I know at the time I checked it to spec and it was perfect. The compressor itself is controlled by a solenoid inside the compressor. It's not like a typical magnetic clutch. It's a compressor that's always spinning, and the solenoid in the compressor is what opens and closes, and that's controlled by the HVAC controller. So when I said I jumped it, that's actually what I was doing. I was opening the solenoid. That also has a spec. The only spec it has is a resistance spec of 12 ohms. When I checked it, it was good. Right on 12. And it says if it's below 8 or above 14, that's not good. It doesn't tell you what it's going to do, but it just says it's not good. That's half the, again, service information being what it is. Trying to see what else I forgot here. It won't, the HVAC controller won't generate, I don't want to say always and never, but I couldn't get it to generate any codes. This car had no codes anywhere. Rephrase that. I think it had an airbag code, something with the steering column. Had nothing to do with air conditioning. But what was my point? Even when I had the HVAC controller disconnected, it wouldn't even generate a U code. I couldn't even make a code. I was trying to make it generate a code to try to say what it, if and then. Nothing. Evap temp sensor, ambient temp sensor, the solenoid and the compressor all checked out good. When I checked, I reached out to several people on this one, a couple of chat groups for information. A lot of names, too many names to mention. Rob Dotterer was one. Him and I were talking a bit about this. I think I hit on Chris from Science of Diagnostics. I think I reached out to Chad maybe. If I'm forgetting somebody, I'm sorry. Keith DeFazio, of course, him and I are on the phone a bit. And I rechecked. And the one thing I didn't recheck was the solenoid in the new compressor. Again, they put a new compressor in this because of the problem, and it had the same problem. So it can't be that, right? I rechecked the solenoid in the compressor, and it had, I don't remember, at one point it had 1.2 mega ohms, then it had 700 and something. I thought I was doing something wrong. I checked it, I rechecked it. The resistance through that solenoid was off. Again, I don't know what, doesn't tell me what's going to happen if the solenoid was off. I did go and check voltage out of the module, because again, when I check resistance, I unplug the module and I check resistance. It goes all the way down to the compressor, and then I went to the compressor to check it to make sure I didn't have a wiring issue. I had the same resistance at the plug in the car going to the compressor as I did at the compressor, so I know my wiring is good. When I plugged it back in, I'm not even sure why, I checked voltage coming out of the HVAC module, and there was 3.6 volts. Why is there 3.6 volts coming out of a module that should have 12 volts commanding the solenoid? Again, no service information whatsoever. What am I doing with 3.6 volts? Bad head? We concluded that it must be, or could be, not must, could be a circuit check. That's exactly what it is. That module puts out 3.6 volts, internally measures the amps, and converts it to a resistance. Ohm's law. I know I'm putting out 3.6 volts. It's pulling this many amps to pull that, to go through that solenoid. I can calculate, this is the module now going, I can calculate the ohms, and it's out of spec. Therefore, again, this is all concluded, hindsight's 2020. Therefore, it doesn't send out the AC on command to the PCM. In turn, the PCM looks at those other two PIDs. Is conditions met? Yes. Am I going to allow the AC to turn on? Yes. But it has to see the AC switch first. The AC switch on is a command from the HVAC to the PCM, which it wasn't allowing because it didn't like the resistance through the solenoid in the compressor. How do I prove this? I back probe the module. I put my voltmeter in there. I piggyback on top of that my variable resistor from the AES Wave terminal kit, quick plug, phenomenal kit. I dial in 12 ohms of resistance. I put the key on, and immediately the PID on the scan tool, that AC on PID through the PCM, without even starting the car, it goes to on. I start the car, AC conditions met, AC allowed by ECU, on, AC goes on all day long. I unplug it, take my resistor out, it stays running. Because the check is only done key on. Once it starts, that 3.6, and let me back up a hair. What I did was I took my variable resistor out, started the car, the AC would not come on. Shut the car off, put the variable resistor back in, dialed in my 12 ohms again, put the key on, started it, switched my meter over to volts real quick, and that 3.6 went to 12. Concluding that the HVAC module puts out the 3.6 volts until it's satisfied that the resistance through the solenoid is good, and then switches the voltage. And I did that several times by taking the resistor in and out, recycling the key. It works, it don't work, haha, put it back in, I get it to work, take it back out, it don't work. In the end, this thing needed another compressor. Yeah, this was a long way to get to that. What's the moral of the story? Don't trust it. Yeah, it was aftermarket. Don't trust aftermarket parts. I don't know what to say about service information. Diagrams, well, you're going to have to figure that one out on your own, because they're a mess, some of them. They're wrong. They overlay multiple options. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I'm not sure what else the lesson is in here. Double check yourself. Check it again, check it a third time, write it down. Because if I wrote it down, I'd be able to tell you what those readings were from the evap temp sensor and the ambient temp sensor without trying to look it back up again. And I usually do write it down. This particular job just went right in the dumpster. But I stuck with it. They were looking to send the car back to the dealer. I said, please do not send that car back. I will be back to check it. I stuck with it, and we got it fixed, and that car is 100%. That's it. I hope I pulled this thing together and it didn't look too miserable. I hope everybody's doing well. Please check out my other videos. Support the guys that are helping me, help them. That's all I got for now. Hope everybody's having a great day.